Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
We have a policy analyst from the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. Mr. Jacob Bundrick is back with us. Jacob, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yes, I understand you're also accompanied by Dr. Tom Snyder, who is an Arkansas Center for Research and Economics scholar. So welcome, Dr. Snyder.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I wanted there's a new paper that's out. Associate Professor of Economics at UCA, Dr. Thomas Snyder, about occupational licensing. So tell us a little bit about it. I mean, I know what it is, but tell our listeners, what is occupational licensing?
Yeah, so it's sort of like a driver's license, right? You can't drive legally without a license. It's also illegal to work some professions without a license, especially in Arkansas. So if you want to give, say, a massage for free, that's fine, but if you charge $1 for it, you need a license in Arkansas, right? So if you want to give a manicure, that's fine, but if you charge for it, you need a license in Arkansas. If you make a living as a barber or athletic trainer or veterinarian technologist or optician or cosmetologist, you need a license in Arkansas. So to get a license, it's not always so easy. You need a certain amount of education or experience. You need to pass exams, pay fees, and sometimes be of good moral character to get the license. Okay.
So why is this an important issue for Arkansas? And I know your paper addresses some of that.
Right. Well, the Institute for Justice actually found that Arkansas has the second most burdensome licensing requirements in the whole U.S., right? Only behind Hawaii. So we're number one on the mainland. Also the paper, right? So the Mercatus Center paper and George Mason University also highlighted Arkansas's excessive licensing regime. So we're talking about not doctors, lawyers, that kind of thing. We're talking about below median income occupations, so skincare specialists, fire alarm installers, door repair contractors. In Arkansas, we require 689 days on average of education and experience to get a license. Right, so that's second in the nation. Mississippi, right? We like to beat Mississippi. I guess we sort of beat them here. They only require 155 days for a license. New York, they only require 283 days.
Wow.
So it's harder to get these jobs in Arkansas than almost any other state. The fees are somewhat normal, but
so is that on average? So when you say an average of 689 days of education or experience per license, Mississippi 155, New York 283. I mean, that's pretty bad when Arkansas is outpacing the state of New York but with those kind of margins, 689 compared to 283.
Yeah, I don't know what's special about Arkansas compared to New York, but you would think that they're kind of sophisticated in New York. They would maybe require, right, high licensing burdens, but for whatever reason in Arkansas, we have high standards, apparently. We make people go through a lot of requirements just to earn an honest living.
Wow.
So as far as our ease of doing business, I mean, that ranks us near the bottom for these occupations.
Gosh. I mean, so it sounds like that it's harder to get, basically, to get these jobs. You know, if you want to do these professions in Arkansas, you have a lot more burdens than if you were in another state.
Correct, right. And another strange stat, I mean, our fees are somewhat normal, but a mobile home installer, for instance, in Arkansas, it'll cost you $2,750 to get a license and get started. That's the most expensive in the nation. In fact, it's 4 times the highest state, the second highest state, which is Arizona. In Tennessee, our neighbor, you could pay $25 to get a license, but in Arkansas, you need to pay $2,750. So
to install a mobile home. To install a mobile home.
So if you think you're trying to get your business started installing mobile homes, where would you rather go, right? Tennessee pay $25 or Arkansas pay $2,750?
Gosh. I'm so glad, I'm really glad that you wrote this paper. We're talking with Dr. Tom Snyder. He's a scholar from the Arkansas Center for Research Economics, also policy analyst Jacob Bundrick. You've presented a lot of evidence. I mean, Arkansas is obviously not good compared to other states. And we a lot of time, and I know the center has done this, compared tax structures and everything else. But this evidence specifically on occupational licensing, what does the evidence say about these regulations?
Well, some people think licensing is good, right? It should improve quality, it should improve safety, but the evidence actually says it doesn't. There was a study on electricians. You want electricians to be very good, right? So some states had high requirements to be an electrician, and what happened was that you had fewer electricians and harder to get an electrician when you need one. So people did the service themselves, did the electrical work themselves, and actually some were electrocuted. So in trying to create safety, you actually cause less safety with these sort of requirements. So you would think that this licensing does good, but actually the evidence doesn't really show that. And also, we have higher prices because of the licensing. We have less competition. And also, I mentioned in a recent op-ed that you have more crime as well. So when you have fewer employment opportunities, like regular folks have a harder time getting a job, they may resort to crime. Also, those folks who say were in prison or were in jail, when they get out, they have a hard time getting a job because of these requirements.
Wow.
And they may have very little choice but to actually commit more crime, and that's also been shown.
Okay. I want to stop you right there because this is a huge part. To me, this is a huge discovery that what you're talking about here, because you just mentioned, and I know, good intentions, and government always tries to start a program, or most of the time they try to start a program with these good intentions. In the case of these licensing, it's about public safety, and I have a parody that we run on licensing boards that, we specifically highlight cosmetology, but it's always in the name of public safety that we do these things. And but I think a lot of these occupational licensing has gone way far beyond the scope of public safety, and it's more about protectionism of individual industries. But what you're saying here, and this would be extreme irony, and if you look at Arkansas compared to New York and those other states that you were saying, how burdensome our regulations are, how burdensome our occupational licensing is in the name of public safety, and yet if you can't get a job because of the regulations, you may turn to crime, which is now making us less safe. It's actually the complete opposite. Isn't that strange? I mean, that is something that to me could be a paper in and of itself, how our intentions are for public safety, so we create a licensing system. It's so burdensome that, that an average person may commit more crimes because they can't become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, we've known this for some time. Milton Friedman, you may know of him, and other leading economists back in the 1960s knew that these license requirements were really designed to actually stop or limit competition, right? Not really designed to protect the consumer.
Gosh.
Yeah, so one of the other things that's interesting about it is you're very familiar with some of the other programs that Arkansas has to try to boost entrepreneurship and economic development. We give out these special subsidies and tax breaks to select companies, but the evidence there largely suggests that that's not very effective at stimulating the broad economy. But one simple thing that we could do is just remove these licensing burdens so that people can go to work. What a job stimulus there, where we actually let people have a job without making them jump through these hoops. And I think that's something that's relatively easy and potentially a lot more successful than trying to pick winners and losers with the subsidies and tax breaks.
Jacob, that's fantastic. I love that. Right. I absolutely love that. You've been on the program before, and we've discussed how the government takes our tax dollars, gives it away to a private company trying to lure them here, and how, there's a lot of evidence to suggest how ineffective that is. And you're saying if we would just get rid of some of these licensing requirements, that's a real economic development opportunity, because you're leaving it up to people to go create the jobs themselves.
Right, and we this is something that we've actually researched. Dr. Snyder has, and you can find his paper on our website at uca.edu/ACRE. And what his research found is that the more licensing requirements you have, the more unemployment you have and the less people there are in the labor force. So there's evidence to suggest that if you reduce these licensing burdens, you'll actually, decrease the unemployment rate some more, and you'll get more people that are engaged in the labor force. So I think that's something that we all like.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, folks, you guys are good. We're going to take a quick break. So Jacob and Dr. Tom, you guys are okay for a second, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to finish up this half hour here in just a minute. We'll be right back with Jacob Bundrick and Dr. Tom Snyder from the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute. Us to talk further about those conservative ideas, we have the good folks from the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, Mr. Jacob Bundrick and Dr. Tom Snyder. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Feel free, any of you decide to dive in here. We've been talking about this paper on occupational licensing, and, we have demonstrated in the last segment how Arkansas is so oppressive. I mean, this is the definition of soft tyranny, in my opinion, with these obstacles to work and the protectionism that's going on. It's a really good paper, again, of the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. Let's talk about the consequences of occupational licensing. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, one thing we don't think about, but when the economy suffers overall, like I said a while back, say you lose your real estate job. Well, in Arkansas, you can't easily become, say, an optician or massage therapist or a door repair contractor because of the licensing requirements. And if you look at the labor force participation rate, here it's about 58%. Missouri is about 65%, and they have lower licensing requirements. So maybe there's something there. We mentioned the crime as well, right? If you can't find a job easily, you're more likely to resort to crime.
Gosh. So you can't easily become an optician, a massage therapist, or door repair contractor in Arkansas. You guys have a lot of the, in these in the paper here, or in these comparisons. There's just a lot of jobs that you wouldn't think about. I remember back a couple of years ago in the Arkansas General Assembly, they were just trying to roll back on the cosmetology board a simple requirement that required people who braided hair to go through cosmetology school, and the cosmetology schools around them didn't even offer hair braiding. And this is an establishment that's all they did was they braided hair. That's it. And they took money for it, and they were wanting them to go and get 1,500 hours of education. And it was like the end of the world, and they did succeed, I believe, in allowing hair braiders to braid hair. But it was such a difficult thing, and it almost didn't even pass. And this was a couple of years ago. Why do you think it is so difficult to roll some of these occupational licensing rules and regs back?
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, they have special interests, right? So the cosmetology schools, they want to stay in business. They want to make sure that there's licensing requirements, right? Or the massage therapy schools, like they want to make sure that there's high burdens, so you have to go to that school and get your degree from that school, right? And the current folks that are in those occupations, well, of course, they don't want competition, right? So they like more burdens as well. And sometimes you see these grandfather clauses as well. So if you're in that profession and a new license requirement comes out, you're exempt. You don't have to do that. So that sounds good. Of course, you're not in that profession. It sounds good for you, but it hurts all those consumers and those would-be entrepreneurs that can't get into the business in the future, right? They don't have a voice in that situation.
Yeah, at some point, I've compared this to just kind of, you've just got to grease the right palms. If you want to work, you've got to pay tribute to the right people. I mean, that seems to be what this is here. And if anybody else tried to do this, it would be illegal. But it's tied within the government, and so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult too for, say, a future entrepreneur. You don't know, say, in a few years you're going to be a cosmetologist, right? You're not thinking about going, and trying to pass some legislation, right? Those in the business, they're much more organized, and they're going to be the ones actually pushing for this, right? Consumers, you buy a lot of products, you consume a lot of services, right? You're not going to get all riled up for one individual issue, right? But if that's actually your occupation, then you will. So it's tough for a politician, right, to maybe maybe what's in the best interest for everyone when they have the special interest right behind them trying to push a certain regulation.
I want to back up.
The special interest just has so much more to gain from these protectionist regulations, whereas each individual consumer, if there weren't, fewer regulations, they'd pay just a few dollars less here and there for the goods and services that they consume. So, the average person doesn't have enough time in the day or can't afford to take off from work to go down to Little Rock and fight these regulations. But some individual whose business it is something that's protected by these regulations, they have a lot riding on this. So they have a much greater incentive to go down and keep these protectionist regulations going.
Well, and the people are paying the price for it. I mean, I want to back up here, and I have some statistics in front of me. You look at the labor force participation rates, and you look at Arkansas's in 2016, 58.1% versus Missouri's 65.4%. And then you look at Missouri's lower licensing regulations compared to Arkansas's. Are you guys saying there's a direct correlation there?
Well, actually, I have a paper that hopefully comes out in the next year or so, but I've actually looked at the data, and there is a correlation between occupational licensing requirements and labor force participation rates. So we actually do find the more requirements or more burdens you put on folks trying to get a license, the more likely they're not going to enter the labor force. So you see higher burdens associated with lower labor force participation rates.
I want to talk here in a second about what we can do about this, because I know you guys have some ideas. But first, let's talk about the system as it is, if you don't mind. Okay, each one of these protectionists, and these are just my words, they're protected by a board, right? Most of the time, as far as there's the way I know. And this board is made up of the professionals of that whatever industry we're talking about here. Is that correct?
That is very common, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I mean, there's a conflict of interest there, right? If you're on the board and you have a chance to approve someone or not approve someone to get a license, well, if you approve them, then they're going to compete with you, right? So you're more likely to say, well, no, you're not, you don't pass this exam, or make the exam very hard, or make the requirements very hard.
Yes.
So if you're on that board, you have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, and they're going to say, they're going to scream, well, no, it's public safety and everything else. And the sad truth is we've got some professionals who don't really see what they're doing, or they don't really care about voluntary cooperation and more freedom and more liberty. They don't think it's a big deal. But is there anything we can do to the solutions? We're running out of time here. Is there anything we can do with these boards as is to say, look, if this regulation can be found and proven to not be about the public's safety, then we need to do away with it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we can do. I mean, simply, you mentioned the hair braiding thing. We can easily just exempt folks from certain license requirements that are not, something that's going to cause a big harm. And you can have what's called sunrise or sunset review. Sunrise means do a cost-benefit analysis before you ever implement a license. So maybe we could stop the bleeding for one thing. For a sunset review, we could look at cost-benefits of the current regulations and get rid of those that don't meet the requirements. We can look at other states. If another state doesn't license something and they're doing just fine, then why do we need that license requirement?
That's a good point. It's a really good point.
In Mississippi, they give the governor veto power over the regulations. Maybe we could look into something like that.
Hey, that'd be neat. Unfortunately, our current governor would never veto any regulation. That's my opinion. Hey, I appreciate it. Dr. Tom Snyder, scholar with the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, and Jacob Bundrick, a policy analyst there as well. Hey, thank you guys so much. It's been a great half hour, and I can't wait to get a smaller portion of this video out to everybody so they know how burdensome our regulations are in Arkansas.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, guys. Be safe. Folks, we will have